Welcome to The Pure Perspective, the podcast where we explore the many pathways to recovery. I'm your host, Kyle Van Blerkum, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. At The Pure Perspective, we're on a mission to shine light onto the journey of healing, resilience, and hope. Each episode, we bring you powerful stories of individuals who have faced substance use and mental health challenges head-on, along with insights from trained professionals and family members offering unwavering support. Whether you're on your own path to recovery or seeking to understand the struggles and triumphs of others, you're in the right place. This podcast is a safe space for inspiration, connection, and growth. Get ready for candid conversations, heartfelt stories, and valuable insights right here on The Pure Perspective. Welcome back to another inspiring episode of The Pure Perspective. Today our guest, Pastor Ean McC, invites us into a very intimate chapter in his life, sharing the struggles that shaped his journey and ultimately led him into the ministry. His story is one of resilience, transformation, and the pursuit of his dreams. From facing personal challenges to finding purpose and helping others through their active addiction, Pastor Ean brings us not just his story, but valuable insights and advice that resonates with us all. So buckle up for an episode filled with inspiration, wisdom, and the unwavering belief in the power of lending a helping hand. Without further ado, here's Pastor Ean. All right, so Ean, I'm so glad that we were able to meet up today. We're out here at the Josh Hove Memorial Coffee Shop, or the future home of.
Yeah.
You're going to tell us about your story and then some future plans for this place, which is pretty cool, I have to say. Coming out here, it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it's pretty, as we talked beforehand here, it's pretty amazing in reality how fast God moves. And I think, I'll start with some of my testimony. I'm a grateful recovered drug addict. I like to get rid of that stigma. I say I'm recovered, because the AA Big Book tells me that I'm recovered, but also my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ broke my chains of addiction about 7 years ago. Literally, and I don't always share this, but it's in my mind right now, so I'll just share it. But I was watching a YouTube video of a 16-year-old boy on the show The Voice, and he was singing the song Break Every Chain. And it was April 2nd of 2016. And I just literally, as I'm listening to that, I literally felt all these chains just break off of me. So ever since April 2nd, 2016, I've said, I'm recovered. But I also know that my mindset and my mentality is if I don't keep working a program, it's only a matter of time before I'm back out there using. So I chair lots of recovery meetings, mainly Christ-based ones nowadays. This is my first podcast, so bear with me here.
No worries.
It's like I don't know what to do with my hands, So, and it's like I don't have a congregation or a crowd that I'm talking to. I'm a pastor also. I pastor a church in downtown Minneapolis called Free Grace United. Been down there for 5 years now. We do a lot with the homeless and the addicted, and we help get people off the streets. We partner with treatment centers and sober houses, and it's just always about connections and networking and just trying to help people live a different life. But I almost used the word normal, but I don't know what normal means. I'm not your average person that's in recovery. My parents will be married for 48 years this April. They still live in the same house that I was raised in. And my parents gave me that Jesus love. They gave me that unconditional love where I didn't even start talking until I was like 4 years old. I just go, and I get whatever I wanted. It's still kind of that way because I'm the youngest. I have one older sister, 4 years older than me, and I did all the things that she did but worse, but I got away with it and she got in trouble. So she hated me for a while, I think, but we're on much better terms now. but just, and I never really realized it until later. But I mean, my mom is officially retired now. My dad's been retired. But my dad, even in retirement, works at a golf course, helps out at a boat launch. So like he's still working, and my mom's always worked 2 jobs also. Like, so that was always ingrained in me, instilled in me, was work, do a lot of work. Earn what you're gonna get.
Well, you're a pretty busy guy.
That's nonstop. It's nonstop. I'm grateful we were able to find time to meet here in Osceola today. Yeah. But that's been, and then I never really realized I'm a sports guy. I love sports. I don't watch them anymore because I don't care who wins, but I still root for my Wisconsin teams. Yeah. But growing up, I played baseball, soccer, basketball, football, and golf. So I did all the things. But I never thought of it until after I got clean. But then looking back, like my dad was a truck driver, over-the-road truck driver for a while in my younger years, and then he was always working 2 jobs. So he would occasionally like help coach, but he wasn't always there. So there was a kind of a little void there sometimes, which I never really realized until I stopped doing drugs.
Right.
But so I realized that, and I was raised in a Lutheran church and baptized as a baby, went through confirmation 8th grade, and then high school hit, and I was like, "Ooh, all the cool kids party on the weekend, so I'm gonna go hang out with the cool kids."
Right. Where'd you grow up?
Hayward, Wisconsin. Northern Wisconsin.
Okay.
Yeah. From here, from Osceola, it's probably 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 hours.
Got it. Central part of it. Central north?
North central.
Yeah.
Like straight north of Rice Lake.
Okay. Sure.
Born and raised in Hayward. Yeah, I was pretty much straight A student, maybe a couple B's up until high school, and then I started hanging out with, as we all know, the cool kids.
Yeah.
And that was just alcohol and marijuana all the time. And just my grades slowly went down. When I share my story testimony, I like to share a little bit of the insanity, but I don't like to get stuck back there. But just to kind of give some more context, like went off to college. I went to college 5 different times in 6 years. And it was all bad.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you went to college and your drinking stopped.
Oh, no. Here's the crazy thing. I went to college, my drinking got worse, but then what got even worse was after I dropped out of college. I went to UW Green Bay for my first year. I didn't know anybody there except for my older sister. So that first year, I went to class at least. I didn't do any of the work, but I went to class, so I got like a 2.0.
Sure.
But then 2 of my best friends came the next year, and I didn't go to any classes, and I got a 0.00 GPA, so that was $20,000 that just got thrown away.
You're on a winning streak.
On a great winning streak. And so then I was like, well, I should probably just drop out of college and stop wasting money. So then I moved back to Hayward, and I started hanging, and then I moved in at my buddy's house. I was at my parents', but never there.
Yep.
And this would have been... Geez, I'm getting old. I'll be 38 on Saturday. So we're talking 18 years ago. And the house that I was on my way from the bar to the house where I was staying, and my friend texted me, and he goes, "Hey, are you at the house?" I'm like, "I'm on my way there. Why? What's up?" He said, "Don't go there. SWAT's there." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going there. I'm going back to the bar." And all SWAT found there was some underage drinkers and some beaners in the basement. That's all they found. So I thought it'd be a great idea.
You dated yourself a little bit there with the beaners.
Yeah, that's not even a thing anymore. It's all synthetic now, isn't it? Yeah, all synthetic and legal and some. Yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. Yep, beaners. Back when. Never mind. But I thought it'd be a good idea to move from that house to my actual dealer's house. And my weed dealer happened to also be the big ecstasy and cocaine dealer. And then I was like, oh yeah, you can use my car. Sure, you can use my cell phone. And I knew what he was doing, selling big amounts of drugs. Yeah. And then 2 months later, our house, our neighbor's house, and then a house a mile away all got raided from all the lovely alphabet agencies. the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of them. And luckily, all they found at our house was 2 pounds of extremely high. We only had the best.
Yeah.
2 pounds of extremely high quality marijuana and a broken hookah. That's what they found at our house. All the cocaine, guns, and money, that was next door.
So you lucked out.
Yeah. God looked out for me. But I've been on that lovely watch list. And I'm probably still on the watch list, even though I got a little over 11 years clean.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're still watching me, but they're proud of me this time.
Yeah, right.
Instead of doing the horrible things. But that wasn't even the insanity of it all. So, and then in that, I got a DUI when I wasn't even driving. The guy that was driving pulled me into the driver's seat because he didn't have a license. So I got that reduced to disorderly conduct for lying to an officer, but it wasn't a DUI at least.
Yeah.
But I chose probation, which they put me on a no-drink probation, and while I was on a no-drink probation, I stole somebody's Jeep because the Jeep that I was driving, the key was broke off in the ignition, so you just had to get in and just turn the ignition. Mm-hmm. Somebody in Spooner, Wisconsin, left their keys in their ignition, same Jeep, parked right next to mine, and I took his. I was blacked out. I came to in the Washburn County Jail to the cop on the phone going, "You don't want to press charges?" Yeah, your Jeep's fine. It's at Quick Trip. You don't want to press charges? All right. So therefore, by the grace of God, I didn't get Grand Theft Auto or whatever other felony they could have got me with. That was my first DUI. And then 2 years later, on July 4th of 2011, I got DUI number 2. And then 10 days later, I decided to get blacked out drunk and borrow my dad's Jeep and total that. And you can't, once I get my hair cut, you can see it better, but there's a contusion on the right side of my head. I totaled my dad's Jeep. I took it off the road. A tree came through the side of the Jeep, and it stopped. It stopped right in the middle. And I was always with people, so if somebody would have been sitting there, we both would have been dead from the impact. But instead, I ended up with concussion-like symptoms and a contusion. And it was only a second offense because the paperwork hadn't gone through yet from 10 days previous. So it was a book and release. So I could just get right out and keep drinking in insanity. And throughout that, I had started, So the year before that is when I found lovely meth. So February of 2010. So that was 6 months before those DUIs. I started doing meth, and that was as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I'll date myself again. He'd say that's when my life got turned upside down. Was when I started doing meth. Yeah. And then I drank a little bit, but pretty much nothing else mattered. It was just meth. And finally, I ended up sitting in jail for those 2 DUIs for 9 months. I actually sat in jail an extra 2 months. That way I wouldn't be on probation anymore. And then I actually lost my good time because I got caught drinking while I was on work release. They frown upon that, I guess. I don't know why. So September 17th of 2012, got released from jail. I moved in with a guy named Peter B., who went to school with my mom up in Hayward. And this was in Hayward. And I could legally drink. And Peter B. was a beer distributor for 35 years. So his house was just full of booze. And I drank heavily because I could legally drink. But I kept hanging out with my meth-using friends. But I wanted to stay off the meth because the meth game was messing me up. Yeah. But I kept hanging out with the same people, and a month later, it was, and gambling was a huge part of my addiction too, and casinos. Excuse me. And a month later, 3 a.m., leaving the casino, and I had to work at 8 a.m. I was a manager at Dairy Queen. I'm a Dairy Queen guy. My boss up in Hayward, he still owns it, and I've actually lost that job 3 different times to my meth addiction, and he's still one of my best friends and still has my back over everything, so that's crazy and amazing. And then my friend got a message saying that they just picked up meth, so come get high, and so we went out there, and And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do it. Nope, I'm not going to do it. And then it's like 4 a.m. I have to work at 8 a.m. I'm really drunk. So if I go to sleep, I'm probably not going to wake up. Or I could just not go to sleep and start doing meth again.
Right.
And then I was off to the races. I think I went to work that day, but... and then fast forward to December 5th, 2012. I'd been up for a week. I hadn't eaten a week. I'm at Dairy Queen. And for meth, it was the auditory hallucinations were the craziest part for me.
Yeah.
And it's just me and my boss there, but all I can hear is there's three main people that I was a driver for. I wasn't a big guy, but a big in the game, but I was the driver. A pocket full of felonies, driving around to people's houses, all I could hear was their voices and just telling me how worthless I am and I'm a piece of crap, and I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And my boss was not happy with me. And he told me to leave and go home and go to bed and come back and we'd have a conversation the next day. And so I left, and I ended up bringing two women back into the meth game, and one lost her kids to CPS, one lost her job. But like that day, December 5th, I walked to their house, I gave them the last of the dope, and I said I'm out. And then I went home, and my roommate Peter B was like trying to feed me. I was hungry, but I couldn't eat.
Right.
I wasn't one of those meth people that could eat. I wasn't one of them. And I'm sitting there and just there all night, and then my three main dealers like showed up at the house, and Peter B sent them on their way. And then there just came a point, and I thought it was the FBI talking to me.
Yeah.
I had these voices. But then looking back, there was two distinct voices that were talking to me. One was the devil. Yeah. And it was that loud voice that's just like, you're worthless, there's no hope for you. I mean, in little old Hayward, Wisconsin, it's a small town. I was a known meth user, I was a known meth dealer, and really there was no hope for me. And this voice, like, the feds are on their way, like, what are you doing? And then there's this other voice, this still, just calm, peaceful voice that was like, there's hope for you. There's love here. Like, you can get help. And so I battled. And then there came a point when I had to make a decision. And we talk about that with recovery, or our walk in Christianity with Jesus, our faith-based walk. Like, you have to make a decision. And my decision was either get shot in my friend's basement or get help.
Yeah.
And it seems like a pretty easy question, right? Get help or get shot? Like... But my addict mind knew who was going to shoot me, knew why he was going to shoot me, and knew what basement I was going to get shot in.
Yeah.
But then my addict mind was like, well, maybe you'll get shot in the foot or something, and so you won't die, so you could still get high. Yeah. And then I kept battling, and then I'm still alive today, amen. But I chose help, and when I chose help, I never thought of church, but I thought of the Alamo Club in Hayward. And when I got my DUIs, I was court ordered to go to meetings. I was still drinking and using even at the club, even where the 12-step meetings were. But when I heard help, that's what I thought of. So I went and I hid at my parents' house for 4 days, slept for 12 hours, woke up, ate a sandwich, slept for 12 hours, woke up, ate, that cycle. Yeah. And that Monday morning, I went to an AA meeting, and half the people there were still there from 5 years previous. And they remembered me. I was like, I don't know what this program is, but step 1, I can't. Step 2, God can. And step 3 is I better freaking let him. And then I immersed myself in the 12-step program and the Alano Club. At 3 months sober, I was chairing an AA meeting. My temporary sponsor, it was a Thursday night meeting. There was 3 of us there. I had 3 months, and there was 73 years of sobriety in that room. That helped keep me going in my early recovery. 6 months I was chairing an NA meeting. 1 year clean, I got elected to the board of directors. 18 months clean, I was president of the Alamo Club where the 12-step meetings were held. We went from 1 NA meeting to 4 NA meetings a week. We went from the club only being open one night a week to, apart from the meetings, we had it open Wednesday nights, Friday nights, and all day on Sundays for football. We had a big flat screen TV, and we had everything a bar did minus the booze and drugs.
Yeah.
And there was some that was there sometimes too. But pool tables, darts, jukebox, karaoke system, volleyball court out back, a little flat top grill, cook some burgers on, because we had to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't have fun in recovery, why be in recovery? So like, we have to find stuff to do.
Right.
So I had, like I said, I immersed myself in the Alamo Club and the 12-step meetings. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps, you know, and I might get flack for saying this, but I'll say it anyways because I don't like it. But the saying "meeting makers make it," I think that's crap. Meeting makers make meetings. Go. Meetings are part of the program, but then you got to get a sponsor. You got to work those steps. You have to do the work and get in. You know, meetings are part of it, but man, there's so much more to the recovery program.
Right.
Like, do the work. You know, you did the work to go get high, so let's do the work to live a better life. You know, not just sober, but actually live a better life too. And then, about 3 years sober, I started kind of going to church, getting a little more put into a church, and I started going to some 5:30 a.m. Bible studies with a bunch of pastors.
In the morning?
In the morning. Do you want to know what happens when you go to 5:30 a.m. Bible studies with pastors?
What?
You get called to be a pastor.
Okay. I see where this is going. No,
do you see where this is going here? And there were so many like shorter routes to become a pastor or cheaper routes to become a pastor. But remember, I said that I've been to college 5 times. Because and those 5 times, like every time I got because I do have a drug charge, an amphetamine charge, so it's a misdemeanor on my record. And a few drug paraphernalia, underage drinking tickets, the DUIs, all kinds of fun stuff. But like every time I got in trouble, my parents would be like, "Don't you want something more out of life?" And I'm like, "Well, duh."
Right.
But I was still drunk and high, and then I'm like, okay, so what I thought they meant was the American dream. A 4-year college degree, you get married, you have 2.5 kids, you have a dog and a white house with a white picket fence. Like, that's the American dream. So then I'd enroll in college, still drunk, still high, and now I have a bunch of loan money.
Right.
And now I'm just drunker and higher and new charges and 0.00 GPAs. That costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
I'm still definitely paying them off, but that's God's debt. I pay them monthly. But you know, and there's nothing against my parents. It was just what I thought it meant.
Right.
So at this time, I'm feeling called to be a pastor, and I'm an assistant manager again. I got my job back at Dairy Queen after I got sober. So I'm assistant manager at Dairy Queen, getting paid a good salary. I live right in town in Hayward, which I can walk to work and walk to the Alamo Club for very inexpensive rent, and I'm president of the Alamo Club. And in my mind, I'm never going back to college because I'm not smart enough. Remember, I said I was pretty much straight A students until the drugs and alcohol came into play. And God's like, no, you are smart enough, and I want you to go to a 4-year university. So I went to downtown Minneapolis and checked out, it's called North Central University, and I just fell in love with it. And so I enrolled at North Central University. I'll share this quick too. So at the time when I applied to North Central, they sent me back a letter saying, because my GPA was very low, they're like, just send us a letter on why we should accept you. You know, to give us your testimony, essentially.
Yeah.
So I sent them a letter, and they're like, okay, we'll get back to you within a week. This was January of 2016. Yep, January of 2016. So we'll get back to you within a week. So that was January 2016. And I'm in a relationship, and I'm living in sin in this relationship. And then fast forward to March. So it's 3 months later. I have not heard a word from North Central. And I'm in this relationship, living in sin. And my senior pastor is like, oh, and they're all about redemption. Like, they're gonna just be patient. They're gonna accept you. And I'm like, bro, it's been like 3 months.
Yeah.
They told me a week.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And then at a Sunday morning service, it was basically the sermon. The pastor was preaching right to me. And I just got convicted of my relationship that I was in. So that Sunday night, I ended the relationship, Monday morning, I get a phone call.
Hmm.
Hey, just want to let you know we must have filed your thing in the wrong area. We want to let you know that you're accepted. Everything's all good. And I'm like, oh, you filed it in the wrong thing. Okay, God, I see you. But just, it's getting out of my own way. It's like the story of my life is I have to get out of my own way,
Right.
and I believe that the Bible is truth, and that's how I live my life with the biblical morals and values. And then a provision thing is so I'm all accepted. So I go fall of 2016. I'm at North Central. Just before I go there, I did some practice service sermons on Saturday night at my church in Hayward, and I was like $7,000. North Central University is the least expensive private school in the nation. It's still a private school. It's still very expensive.
Yeah, right.
So I was like $7,000 short for my first year of school, and my home church was like, well, we'll take up a special offering for you for the last service that you do to help you out with your schooling. I'm like, cool. So they take up a special offering. I'm $7,000 short. Can you guess how much it was?
14.
$7,000. Exactly.
That's
not a
awesome.
penny more, not a penny less.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So then I moved. Then I head to Minneapolis, and I'm like, you know what? I hadn't been to college in 4 or 5 years, so I'm like, I should probably just like take it slow, not get a job, and just figure out this whole studying thing. I had like 2 hours of free time. I'm like, I'm gonna go find a Dairy Queen and find a job. So within like 4 hours, I had a job as a manager at Dairy Queen in Lino Lake, actually, north suburbs. And then I went from there, got plugged into a Dairy Queen down in Savage, Minnesota, because I like to see how wide my network can get. I'm starting to get better at narrowing it down, but how far can my network and recovery connections go? And it's pretty far and wide, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I plugged in at a church as a youth leader down there, and then I think I'm still technically employed at that Dairy Queen if I wanted to go there and work. But then I got offered a job at Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge,
Okay.
working in the short-term program. And the short-term program is judges can't order them to go there, but people can ask to go there, and judges love Teen Challenge. So I got to hang out with like 80 guys that were a lot like me. And I got paid to do it.
Yeah.
I did that for a little over a year while I was still going to college at North Central. And then in 2018, I had to go to Israel. I was forced to go to Israel.
You were forced to go to Israel.
For 3
that
weeks.
sounds terrible.
It was it was absolutely life-changing and transforming, but it was required for school. That was leading up to my senior year at North Central, and I was like $7,000 short from my Israel trip and to my last year of college. So my home church, the women's group, was like, "Hey, we'll do a silent auction for you, and we'll see how much we can raise for you." I'm like, "Cool, sounds good." I was $7,000 short. Can you guess how much they raised?
$7,000.
$7,000, right on the dot. Like, Scripture says that He will provide. When we seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, we'll be taken care of. So we have to trust in that. It's not always easy, but He's never failed us yet, or failed me yet. So I went to Israel for 3 weeks, came back, and there was this awesome coffee shop 3 blocks from campus. It was called Jar Cafe. It stood for Just As You Are. And it was also a church called Grace in the City. And the senior pastor of the church owned the coffee shop. And it was the best coffee and the cheapest prices. And I came back from Israel, and I was there like every day. And that church their main ministry was the homeless and the addicted. So like there were just people in and out all day. It was nonstop ministry. So I'd be there doing homework and praying over people and sharing my testimony. And so the senior pastor was like, "What are you doing with your life right now?" And I'm like, "Manager at Dairy Queen and Savage. I got 1 year of college left. And then I'm probably going to move back to Hayward, pastor at my church there, and build this big life center because there's not a lot of treatment not treatment center, a life center, not a treatment center. Get rid of that word. But there's not a lot when it comes to help for people in recovery in Wisconsin in general, let alone northern Wisconsin. Or now we're in northwestern Wisconsin, western Wisconsin right now, this moment. But that was my big dream, my big plan or whatever. And he's like, well, I'm looking for someone to launch a Christ-based recovery meeting and a youth ministry on Friday nights. And I was like, all right, I'm in.
Yeah.
And then he was like, and then I got employed as a barista. So I became a barista in the coffee shop. That's how I got paid, was as a barista in the coffee shop. And we launched a Christ-based recovery meeting on Tuesday nights, and we called it Life Recovery. There's a Life Recovery workbook that goes along with the Life Recovery Bible, and it's a great tool and asset to go through the 12 steps. And what we did, because if you remember me saying that meeting makers make meetings, so I always felt that there's a disconnect where people weren't always working the steps. So I'm like, so we actually had a 2-hour meeting from 7 to 9 p.m. The first half hour was live worship. The second half hour was me teaching whatever step we were on and tying that step into Scripture. And then we did an hour of small groups. We started on page 1 of the workbook, and we just went question by question. And it took us about 3.5 years to go through the workbook.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, yes, that was... Some people were like, you're taking too long. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. We still pushed get a sponsor and work the steps outside of here, but we just wanted to have an opportunity. Whether you do it or not, we're going to go through the steps right here, right now.
Yeah.
And there was a whole summer where people were just coming in broken off the streets and still high, and they needed like a step 1 meeting. So we just got to pray over them, because that mattered more to us than trying to hurry through the 12 steps or a workbook. And then he asked me to be the associate pastor of his church, and I'm like, sure. And then I became, I'm now ordained, reverend is the official word, but pastor works a lot better. Reverend sounds kind of cool sometimes, but almost too official. Yeah. But I've been licensed for 5 years now. I got licensed Christmas of 2018. And then ordinations, after a couple of years of being licensed and proving that you're doing the ministry, then you can be ordained. That's where I'm at, because ministry in Minneapolis is ministry in Minneapolis. You can think about that for a second and you'll know what I mean. Downtown Minneapolis and the insanity of all of it. Graduated from, and then the coffee shop lost a lot of money, and then like, how do we keep doing ministry, keep these doors open 7 days a week and not lose a lot of money? So we closed the business coffee shop and reopened a donation-based coffee shop, and everything was given to us, so we gave it all away for free. We didn't charge a dime. And we were called the Hub, stood for Helping You Become. And we became a resource center, which was cool, until it was like there was 2 of us making coffee drinks, and we had no security guards, and there was over 300 people a day coming in.
Oh, wow.
And then the drug dealers and the gang started to find out more about us, and we can go there. And we had big signs that said, don't do drugs here, don't sell drugs here, we'll kick you out for the day. And, but we got run over, and then COVID hits, and then we had a woman overdose on us in the bathroom. We were able to bring her. We brought her back with 1 Narcan, which got her to go from purple to blue. And then my wife was not able to get the second one plunged. But then the paramedics showed up and were able to bring her back to life. But that was on St. Patrick's Day, actually, of 2020. And then we closed the coffee shop for good. But I'm all about connections and networking and partnering and uniting. My church in Minneapolis is called Free Grace United, and it's about doing ministry and doing life together. So as soon as Governor Walz opened up the door, you can have 12 people in a space. Every day at 10:30 a.m. we had a Bible study or a prayer meeting or a recovery meeting. So we opened the doors at 10 a.m., coffee and donuts, 10:30 to noon, Bible study or prayer recovery meeting, lunch together, and then we went and did street outreach every day of the week. And
what did that look like? I'm sorry, you said street outreach. What did that?
yeah, so we would take out food and water and some clothes, not so much clothes, but like winter items.
Sure.
Not so much in the summer, but our main thing was like, yes, we would love to give you food, but we also want to pray for you, and we also want to give you options. Like we'd take people to detox. We still partner with treatment centers, sober houses, so that when people are ready to get off the street, they know they can come to 609 South 10th Street, or if we see them out on the street, they know. Well, that's the hardest part when it comes to drugs and alcohol. That person has to be ready.
Right.
Right. So that's just always been our big thing, is just street outreach, street ministry. And at the end of 2019, I actually took over as senior pastor because the senior pastor did some things he wasn't supposed to do and was asked to leave. It made zero sense for me to stay, and we were in a very big financial debt, and we still had the coffee shop, and it was taxing. And but 100% of good, godly men and women counsel told me to walk away, and to just go do ministry somewhere else, a lot cheaper. And but every time someone said close those doors, like God punched me in the stomach and just said, "Hey, there needs to be ministry at 609 South 10th Street, and it's got to be sustainable." And I'm like, all right, well, all these things have to happen by tomorrow, and they don't make sense. They're not even possible. But if these things happen by tomorrow, then I guess I'll stay, God. And all those things happened.
Of course they did.
And I'm like, oh crap, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And God just brought people. God brought one of my dad's frat brothers from college who had just retired from Thriving Financial. He brought some elders from Woodbury who had some business background, some finances. God brought a guy from Milwaukee who works for Luther Seminary, and his main thing is the business aspect, helping churches and nonprofits that work with the homeless and addicted. That's his background, and he literally had just moved to Minneapolis a week prior to that.
Wow.
So God just orchestrated all these things, and it was scary, but God showed up, and I'm like, all right, I'll be obedient.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then 2020, we ended up partnering with a church called Free Grace United, and then we merged with Free Grace United November of 2020, so just over 3 years ago. And Free Grace United itself, our main church is out in Elk River. We now have 46 locations all around the world. We're all over the Twin Cities. We're in Iowa. We partner with pastors in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Liberia, Kenya, and India. We bought a big camp down in Eldora, Iowa, and God's just doing crazy, awesome things through Free Grace United, and which kind of slowly brings me closer to today.
Yeah.
And we're in a room inside a soon-to-be Mission Coffee House.
This is the exciting part.
Yes, yes, yeah. And it's called the Josh Hove Memorial Mission Coffee House, who was a leader, one of the main leaders at Cedar Bend Church here in Osceola, Wisconsin, who passed away at the age of 39 from COVID complications, and left his wife Megan and 3 kids. So the coffee house idea has always been about the widows. Even before Josh passed away, kind of a big heart behind the idea was widows and orphans, and then also to fight addiction. So it's all kind of been the same thing. And then with Josh Hove passing away, now his wife is a widow, and his kids are orphans. But they have a Father in heaven. And then I've slowly been coming alongside them, Cedar Bend, and our friends Rich and Kristen Nelson. So Cedar Bend owns the building, but the Mission Coffee House itself is going to be separate, and the mission itself is to fight addiction in the St. Croix Valley area. So we're looking at raising, I think we need about another $100,000 We're looking to raise $175,000 in order for all the equipment and setup, and then that'll also include a few months worth of salaries for the managers, which will be myself and then Rich and Kristen Nelson. So basically, our boss is very meticulous, and he wants things in order and done in the right way, and have all your finances in order, which is the opposite of me. And I'm like, great idea, let's go, let's do it.
When can we start?
Come on. But I've definitely been getting better at learning patience and God's timing.
Right.
Getting better is the key word. So yeah, and we do we do free grace recovery in this space Tuesday nights at 6:30. So I'm sharing my testimony. So if you didn't get enough of my testimony, I'm going to share it again tonight at 6:30.
Oh, nice.
And
this really is a beautiful space, though. I mean,
yeah.
You were kind of showing me, how things are going to be laid out, and I mean, it's really.
Yeah, and and to be right, we're right downtown Osceola. There's not a coffee house in Osceola.
Right.
There's a couple, there's Caribou in Dick's Market, and some of the cafes have coffee, but not like a specific coffee house where people can go to that coffee house and just have that coffee house feel.
Right.
And so we're just really excited. And God's just been opening up doors. I also just started a part-time job. It's kind of like peer recovery specialist, but it's not. It's called Out of the Wilderness, and we're faith-based, and we're service providers. So basically, we get paid to mentor people in the CCS program.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have my first consumer. He's a teenager up in Frederick. And it's just people that, with mental illness and substance abuse, and they're in the system. So now a recovery team comes around them and makes this plan, and then tries to help them fulfill this plan, which we're service providers, so that plan will look different for all the different people.
Right.
And it's cool because we're in every county in western Wisconsin, all the way down to Pierce County, over to Chippewa County, and it's all based out of Chippewa Falls. And then we're all the way up to not quite to Sawyer County yet, where Hayward is, but Washburn County, Burnett County.
So it's kind of like a peer support, but with more of a faith-based background. I mean,
yep, yeah, and it doesn't matter if they're faith-based or not, but we have that as our thing.
Sure.
So hey, we're faith-based, so that way, wherever you're at doesn't matter. I'm not going to smash the Bible over your head or anything like that. And that's a big thing with my recovery and my testimony is when I got clean and I heard get help. Like I said, I didn't think of church. I thought of the Alamo Club. So I didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ until I was like 3 years clean, because Jesus is all over that AA Big Book, and it's all in there. But I believe that God had me go the AA and NA route to work the steps, so that I would have that extra empathy for the addicts that don't know God or are mad at God, and I believe as a believer that in the end Jesus is our only hope, but we all have different paths. So to allow each person their own path to get there, it's powerful, And I rarely I go to some morning AA meetings in New Richmond, and there's some people there that like to Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, and then they start preaching, and there's a place for that.
Yeah.
But I'm more like, hey, I'm not gonna even mention Jesus Christ, but I'll say God and I'll say higher power, and the more you listen to me, I pray that you see the light in me and you have more questions. And then outside the AA meeting, because some people are put off by Jesus, and I get that.
Maybe they're just not there yet.
Amen. Right. But it's their path. So like for me to try to push that down someone's throat, it's like that's not necessary.
It's funny you say that, because I remember, when I first found out about this whole recovery thing, I started out with AA, and I think I went to a Celebrate Recovery meeting, and everybody was worshiping, and I was like, what the heck is going on here?
Mhm.
You know, I just never seen anything like that. But had I not had that foundation with AA, I don't know that I would have. You know what I mean? So I could totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you answered basically all the questions that I had. So you must have. I did want to say, for people that maybe are listening that are struggling a little bit right now, and what would you say? What would you say?
Reach out.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a saying, I don't remember where I first heard it, but the saying is isolation kills, connection conquers. You know, and I, you know, they talk about the 1,000-pound phone or whatever.
Right.
But I feel like no matter how heavy that phone is, I think it's light enough to where you could at least send a text.
Right.
And it's just, you know, even if it's, you know, it's just someone just, and even if it just says, help. Like,
right.
Or I'm struggling. Like, I feel like, and I know we've all been in dark places, and when it is hard to reach out. But that's where the program comes in. So like if you just go to meetings and all you do is you go to the meeting, you sit there, you don't read any of the readings, you pass, you know, you don't get phone numbers, you know, but you keep going to meetings, but you don't do any of the other stuff. You know, that's where like you go to the meetings and all of a sudden you meet this person, and then I say that the reason they say that to go to 90 meetings in 90 days is so that you can find your crazies, that you can find the people that will hold you accountable. So I always tell people, like, you need to have, you know, and if you're a believer, like, find that home church. It's okay to, there's a lot of good churches, but you should have a home church. And like, that's where you go Sunday mornings. You know, you can go check out Saturday night or whatever, but a home church you go to. And then there should be a home recovery meeting that you go to every week. And then, you know, if you can sneak in a Bible study. And a quick plug out, my wife and I do a Bible study at our home in New Richmond, right by the Alamo Club. Thursday nights from 6 to 8. We do potluck. My wife pretty much cooks every Thursday, and she's the most amazing cook ever.
Some pretty tasty stuff happening over there.
And we always have so much food. But like 6 to 6:45, we do potluck and fellowship, and then like 6:45 to 8, we're just going through a workbook on Philippians right now. And there's people that don't believe in God that come there. There's people that believe in some kind of spirituality. There's all kinds of people that just come, and they're just want to come hang out, you know, and some of them are eager to learn more. And it's like, well, we have the faith-based background, but we're open to...
You're going to meet them where they're at.
Yes. Amen. Yeah, we're going to meet you where you're at, you know, and if you like it, keep coming back, and if you don't, and we've had people come, they eat dinner with us, and then they go to the NA meeting at the club at 7 o'clock. And we're perfectly fine with that, too. Like, just come hang out.
Hang out and see what happens, right?
Yep, exactly. But yeah, just that the community aspect, you know, and if you are struggling, like that's, you know, trying to find things to do too. Like the New Richmond Alamo Club's a great club, but they don't really have. They had a Christmas event, you know, and New Year's Eve, you know, party and stuff like that. That's why I missed the Hayward Alamo Club. We could just go there and we could shoot pool at the Alamo Club.
No kidding, that sounds amazing.
That's like my wife and I will go to like Champs in New Richmond. Like, we'll go to a bar and have lunch and shoot some pool occasionally.
Yeah.
You know, because we're okay going to a bar during the day.
Right.
That serves food.
Right.
But we're not going to go to the bar late at night.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the other thing with my wife, and we're probably way over time, but so met my wife, Echo. A lot of you probably know that are listening to the podcast. She's got a little over 6 years clean now. And met her at a recovery camp out up in northern Wisconsin. Met her the first year, so that would have been summer of 2018. I met her, but I just knew her as the woman that had the kid that her daughter Kalia that fell off the top bunk at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's you know, I said hi to her. We added each other on Facebook or whatever, and then I re-met her at the same camp out a year later, in 2019, and then the cool thing is, and I'll share this about relationships, like we started dating. She was working for the union in the Twin Cities, and she would come to church. She would do ministry with me, and then I'd come over to New Richmond and do stuff with her at the Alano Club. So like our lives and our ministries were intertwining. So like I believe that you have a calling on your life, and then your spouse has a calling on her life, separate, right. But also there's some intertwining of all of it. So we haven't even really. So like the mission coffee house is to fight addiction in the St. Croix Valley area. So it'll be I don't know the correct way to say this. It'll be an actual business coffee shop, but all the profit itself is going to go 80% towards a big dream of mine and my wife's, and we're going to call it a life center. Live in freedom every day. And what we want, and what we're trying to do, is we want to be self-sustaining as self-sustaining as possible. We want to be on a farm, on a lake, a little bit outside of the town somewhere, and we're looking St. Croix Valley area. But we want to be that transition. When I worked at treatment centers and I partnered with treatment centers, and there's a disconnect where it's leaving the treatment centers or even leaving a sober house and then not having a good next step. Right. Or you're a felon, you have bad credit, so you can't rent, so you end up back in your old stomping grounds. You might make it a week or a month or whatever, but right. It's only a matter of time before you're back using because you didn't have the next steps. Even if you got the tools, you still didn't have the next step. So we want to, and we're still working out lots and lots of details.
Right.
But like our idea is we want to partner with credit bureaus and housing people so that that charge you affordable rent, but allow you to build up your credit with and give you rental history to help you in that aspect. And we want you to get a job. We want you to be working. And there'll be stuff that you'll have some farming duties and some different things on site. And I think we're thinking, and we want men, women, families. We'll probably have staff that actually live on site and families that live on site. So it's like, in a sense, kind of going back to the original church in the book of Acts, where it's like everyone's in one area and everything gets pulled together and everyone gets taken care of. And it's not completely that, but it's the unity aspect of it at least.
Yeah.
And just to see that you can do life together, and like I said, a lot of stuff that still has to be figured out with that, but it's been a dream of mine for about 8 years now, and then partnering with Pastor Matt Hayden from Cedar Bend Church, and he's just like, hey, what's stopping you from your dream? And I'm like, money, God's timing, but mainly money. And he said, stop worrying about money, let's start to get some things in place. So the Mission Coffee House, whether or not my wife and I do what we're doing, which we're going to do, the Mission Coffee House is still the same mission, but Pastor Matt believes in me and my wife, and Pastor Matt's done whatever he can to kind of help me get out of the Twin Cities, so I can be a parent to my stepdaughter, who's 12 going on 30, and and I can be at home with my wife more, and so it's like Pastor Matt's done everything he can to help get me. So it's the door slowly opening so I can really do ministry and recovery stuff here in western Wisconsin in the St. Croix Valley area.
God's working here.
Amen.
It's pretty amazing to see. And I have to say that you and your wife are both such pillars in the recovery community, and it's amazing to see just all the good that you guys do in this area and in the Twin Cities. I mean, for people that are interested in supporting the mission here, where would they go to donate?
The website is missioncoffeehouse.org.
Okay.
And once we post this,
I can get the link from you.
Yeah. missioncoffeehouse.org. You can give some one-time gifts, or you can give a pledge to get a recurring gift throughout the year. It's something my wife did.
And you had mentioned you guys have a number to get this place finished out here. What?
Yep. So the total number is $175,000 that we're looking to raise.
Okay.
I'm not sure the numbers, but we had a partnership dinner in December,
Yeah.
and the goal, and there's an anonymous donor that up until the December 31st of 2023 is going to match up to $50,000. I'm pretty sure we raised, what I know of, and I don't have the numbers, our friends Rich and Kristen do, so we're still waiting to hear the numbers on what we've given up to the end of 2023.
Right.
But I think we're at least $25,000 that we raised, or helped raise. So, if it is only $25,000, then that means that we've raised $50,000.
Right.
So then we'd be $125,000 short still, which we're still looking to raise $125,000. That doesn't stop.
Right.
The anonymous matching gift stopped December 31st.
Okay.
But we're still looking to raise at least $125,000, and that's for all the equipment. I might have mentioned this already, but it's for all the equipment plus a couple months of salaries.
Yep.
That way we're
self-sustaining
and good to go for a few months as we get the coffee house itself off the ground. So that's basically like phase one. I guess technically phase one was the partnership dinner, but phase one of all these big dreams is getting this coffee house going. Yeah. And I believe, I'll just say it this way, I believe we're going to have another partnership dinner.
Okay.
End of February-ish, early March. We'll get more info out there when we have that figured out, and that'll just be, we'll feed you, and you'll hear some testimonies, and then you'll hear more of the vision of the coffee house and the Life Center. But we only had about 40 people, which was good. Business owners, people in the community, but a lot of people didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of it wasn't spur of the moment, but I was so busy with my Minneapolis stuff that I was just like, hey, I'll be there and I'll share my heart, and I'll bring my good speakers with me.
Well, we'll definitely share it as those details come available. We can get it out to
Amen.
But Ian, I just want to thank you so much for meeting with me and taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know that you have probably a dozen other things you could be doing right now. I appreciate your vulnerability here, and I'm looking forward to seeing, what's all the good that's going to come from this place. So,
and you and your wife get to be part of it.
Yeah. It's, amazing work up here in Osceola. So
the best part is it gets better.
Yeah, this is just the beginning, right?
Amen.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to get that link posted in the bio of this episode, and once we find out the date on the partnership dinner, we'll get that posted as well. So,
God bless you all. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey of strength and recovery. If you found this episode meaningful, please consider subscribing to The Pure Perspective to stay updated on our upcoming episodes. Your support means the world to us, and by sharing these stories, you're helping to spread hope and resilience to those who may need it most. Remember, you're not alone on your journey, and together we can make a difference. Subscribe now, and let's keep moving forward one story at a time.